Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my very first book video. I asked Jane if I would be able to collab with her the next time she did a book video, and this Thursday is my first. So definitely it's not going to be my last because I really love books. I've loved books since I was very, very little. I think I knew how to read when I was about 2 or 3 years old, truth. Might have even been a little bit younger. I think that I was able to read things like street signs and whatnot before I was 2. At least that's what my mom has documented in my baby book. But I do know that when I was still in preschool, I had a bookshelf and I used to enjoy playing library because my mom used to take me to the library and I enjoyed getting my books and stacking them on my shelves and putting them in alphabetical order. And yes, this is true. I used to do it. It was one of my favorite pastimes. But anyway, I was a strange little kid. Still strange, but more strange as a little kid. So I want to share with you today what I've been reading and what I bought at Barnes & Noble last week. So I do enjoy going to independent bookstores. I enjoy sometimes ordering from Amazon if it's something that's really hard to get, or if it's a really heavy book, or sometimes if it's something that I want to pre-order. But I do often go to Barnes & Noble because it's the closest bookstore to me. I have one maybe 10 minutes from my house. Fun fact, there's only one Barnes & Noble in the entire city of Philadelphia, and that's not the one that I go to because it's not close to me. Yeah. Philly, we're just bursting with reading. Could you imagine? There's some university bookstores, but we really don't have bookstores. Anyway, I go to the Barnes & Noble in Neshaminy, so if any of you happen to go there, I either go to Neshaminy, Cherry Hill, or Hamilton, because I go to the hairdresser in Hamilton, New Jersey. So they're the 3 that I go to the most often. Oh, and sometimes Route 1 at Mercer Mall. God, I can't think what this is called. Market Fair. I knew I was going to spit it out. So they're my main Barnes & Noble locations. And sometimes if I'm out of the area, I'll stop at one that I just happen upon. Anyway, I am still reading the Betsy Tacy books. And I am currently on book number 6, Betsy in Spite of Herself. And guys, I am loving this series so much. The reason why I haven't finished them all yet is because as I'm reading the books, I am actually stopping and looking up some of the things that are mentioned in the books, some things that were current events at the time, such as popular hairstyles, music, popular figures that Betsy Maud actually mentions, and I'm just learning so much more about this time period. So if you're not familiar with these books, these start in, I believe it's 1895, when Betsy is 5 years old and she meets Tacy, who is her lifelong best friend, and then later she meets Tib, and then she meets some other characters. And these basically all take place during the Gilded Age. And I think the last book ends in 1917, right before the start of World War I. So there's just a wealth here. I mean, she mentions Enrique Caruso. She mentions a lot of the stage shows that were popular at the time. Like, I really had no idea that Rip Van Winkle was a popular stage play around the turn of the century. So I looked up some things about what the original production was like, because the 4th book talked about their production in their town and how it went through, and what was kind of traditional to do with this particular show. So I did go back and look that up. I've looked up certain songs, I've listened to the recordings, I've looked up fashions. So it's really been very, very interesting. I love historical fiction, but this has encouraged me probably more than any of the books that I've read to really go back and look at some of the specifics. And since these are really autobiographical to Maud's childhood, she's talking from her own personal knowledge. So opening one of these books is really just like stepping into another time, but also meeting people that you know, because times may change to a degree, but people usually don't change. And everybody in this book is very familiar and someone that you can relate to, and their experiences are things that everybody pretty much experiences at different stages in their life. So highly, highly recommend. And I should be finishing book 6 by the end of the week. So I'll be going on to the next chapter in Betsy's story. The next book that I'm reading simultaneously, and I picked this up the day that it was released, I think it was January 16th, but I just started reading this about a week ago, and I'm kind of alternating back and forth because I try not to carry anything that's really heavy in my work bag because I can't really carry a heavy book. But believe it or not, these are pretty much equal. So it just depends on the bag that I'm carrying, which I read at home and which I'm reading going to work. So this is Grady Hendrix's newest book, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. Now, I understand that Grady Hendrix, for some reason, unknown reason, is really polarizing. There are people in the horror community who love him and people who hate him, or really just kind of don't appreciate his style. And I think the reason for that is he doesn't really write typical horror books. There might be a couple of scenes that are a little bit unsettling, or some things that he talks about where he writes it in a way that is a little bit scary or chilling, but the essence of his books really is about the human stories of these characters. This particular book is set in 1970, and it deals with girls in a home for unwed mothers. So these are pregnant teenagers who are sent away by their parents, typically by their parents, to go and have their baby and come back home once their baby is born, because it was a disgrace to the family. So they're sent here, and it's a private home, and the woman who runs the place is just awful, does not treat the girls well as far as what they can and cannot do. They're not allowed to ask any questions about their condition. They're told what they can eat. They're forced to do certain things, like drink a liver milkshake, for instance. That was one of the things that they were forced to do. And one of the girls, the main character, whose name is Nev, and they're forced to change their names also when they enter the home so that they don't give any personal details to the other residents. She becomes Fern she was assigned the name, not even chose the name, but assigned the name Fern by the woman who runs the home. And there's really nothing for the girls to do there recreationally except for play some old board games and do some puzzles. And they have a bookmobile that comes every 2 weeks or so. So the girls go out to the bookmobile. And at this point, poor Fern, who's been having a lot of issues with having to pee constantly, doesn't know what to get, what book she wants from the bookmobile, but she wants something. And the woman who works at the bookmobile puts in her hands a book titled How to Be a Groovy Witch. I'm going to leave it from there and just kind of go, if you're interested, to read the book and find out what happens next. So it's really interesting, and I really like the way, first of all, he explains in the beginning that there were people in his family who actually were sent. He had an aunt, I believe, or a cousin, or it may have been an aunt and a cousin, who both were sent to a very similar home when they were young and had gotten pregnant. And he talks about, which, you know, if you're not familiar with the Salem witch trials or with history, a lot of times women, if they were independent, if they didn't follow the norm, or if they used any kind of herbs or holistic medicine, they were usually called a witch, right? Because people just couldn't deal with a woman having the ability to take control of herself. So the girls in the story used this book to try to gain control over their own personal situation, their health, and what their destiny is going to be. So they're basically driven to this. And I haven't gotten far enough into it to know what goes wrong. I'm assuming that something does, but that's where he got the premise of the book from. But I love Grady. I don't understand how anybody could not. I've always loved horror with a little bit of humor, and most of Stephen King's books have that element to them as well. He's able to put in some really humorous sections, or some things that are both, between a laugh and a scream. And I think that that's what kind of makes it more interesting. I don't always have to have the most gory and awful horror. I really like psychological books, and I like something like this that kind of takes a situation and injects the horror to kind of help the story along. And that's the way I feel with this. So I don't feel at all let down so far. This is probably a little bit more serious than some of his other books in the way that it starts out, because you can't help but feel sorry for these girls, right? Not even so much their predicament, because you don't really hear of those things happening now, but I do have a background in social work, and I have worked with girls who were placed in maternity homes, and fortunately they didn't have quite these experiences, but the girls' emotions and their, I guess, desire to change really resonates with me from the girls that I've worked with. So definitely highly, highly recommend it. Grady is fantastic if you're not really into horror, but you like a good story and you don't mind some chills. But I just absolutely love him. And just a little FYI, he does have a book that was turned into a movie, and it's one of my favorites. And a lot of people talk about how they wept at the end of the novel, because it does leave you with that kind of feeling, called My Best Friend's Exorcism. And the movie is really good. It's a lot of fun, but the book is really even better. So you'd have to go and read it. It's really about the power of friendship and what girls are willing to do, or friends are really willing to do for each other, when your bestie needs a little helping hand. Okay, so the books that I chose when I was at Barnes & Noble lately, these were buy one, get one half off, and there were a lot of titles there that I really wanted to read. And I didn't notice originally that they were buy one, get one half off. So one book that wasn't in that group, I just put off for next time and decided to get the ones that were this go around, because, I wanted to just catch the sale. And I could have gotten a lot more, but I just had to go and stop. So the first book that I got is called Hidden Pictures, and I'll read you the blurb that's on the back. This is by Jason Rekulak, and it says, Mallory Quinn is fresh out of rehab when she takes a job babysitting Ted and Carolyn Maxwell's 5-year-old son, Teddy. She immediately bonds with this sweet boy who is never without a sketchbook. His drawings are the usual fare, trees, rabbits, balloons. But one day he draws something different. A man dragging a woman's lifeless body. Then his stick figures evolve into increasingly sophisticated sketches depicting one disturbing scene after another. Is Teddy troubled, or is he channeling forces he cannot possibly understand? Knowing just how crazy it all sounds, Mallory must decipher the images and save Teddy before it's too late. So this looked really, really good, looked very interesting. I just kind of flipped through, and it starts off with some prose, and then you get your first Teddy drawing. And I really kind of don't want to skip around to a lot of what's happening here and give it away, because I think that this is one that really just has to unfold. So I'm going to read this as soon as I finish one of the other two I'm reading now. And then I also picked up Out There Screaming, and this is a horror anthology of Black fiction edited by Jordan Peele. So he took these short stories, and they're basically horror short stories. This is nominated, or was nominated, for a Bram Stoker Award. And I love short stories, and I thought that these were really original, and I'm a huge fan of Jordan Peele. He is the perfect example of between a laugh and a scream. So the blurb in the back describes some of this groundbreaking anthology of Black horror stories exploring not only the terrors of the supernatural, but the chilling reality of injustice that haunts our nation. So the stories look really amazing, and they're current. Some of them are historical events, but he basically takes this grouping of stories and, puts it together for you so that you can have a good variety of types of scares. So he does the introduction. Out There Screaming is a masterclass in horror. Like Peele's spine-chilling films, these stories prey on everything we think we know about our world and redefine what it means to be afraid. So I think that a lot of these are going to be reality-based, and some of them are going to be supernatural, and I'm really very, very excited to start this anthology. If anyone knows, yes, it is a Bram Stoker Award winner. So let me see what year that was. I do try to keep track of who wins the Bram Stoker Awards, but I don't know last year who did. So this was published in 2023, so I'm going to guess that it's 2023. The hardback came out in 24. So this is, or excuse me, the paperback. So this is, within the last year's paperback. So it probably was nominated during its original published year. So I'm really excited to start that. I haven't even looked to see who the authors are, and I don't really care because I know that I am going to absolutely love it. So I'm really eager to start both of these. I do mainly like horror fiction, but I also like historical fiction and really good drama. So if you have any suggestions that you think that I should read, please leave those in the comments below, and go over and see what Jane is reading, and I will see you in my next video. I will update you on my next reads, and I'm going to show some of my rare books. See you soon. Bye.